Shalom, my name is Yadon Yasharal, and the title of today's Bible study is The Fallen Ones and Giants. The Fallen Ones and Giants. And, we've heard a lot of stories and a lot of, movies and the latest one with Noah showed some rock men and all kind of stuff. And we also know that it also talks about, literally in the King James Version, it says giants. So we're going to get into that and read, and we're going to go through some of the other books like Enoch and Jubilees, and we're going to see some of the other things that are explained about the angels, the fallen ones, and so-called giants. So let's open up in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6. Bereshit chapter 6, Genesis, and we're going to read verses 1 through 15.
And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And Yahweh said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in all the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented Yahweh that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them.
So Yahweh is saying, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them for wives of all which they chose. So you have a lot of different philosophies of thought regarding, which sons of men are they talking about? Because when you talk about the sons of Yahweh, you have the angels, and then you also have the children of Yasharal that are made in his image, that have his spirit, the spirit of Israel. So as you read, it talks now about giants. There were giants when you get to verse 4. So we're going to look at what the Hebrew word for giants was that they translated into the word giants in English. So if we look at it, it's H5303. Nephil, spelled N-E-F-E-E-L. Nephil. Properly a feller, that is a bully or tyrant. And it comes from the root word of nafal, which is to fall in a great variety of applications. Cast down, cease, die, divide. So what you're seeing here is they translated and they put giants, which is, that term in English can mean that as well. Like, oh, he's a giant when it comes to, the hand game. He's a heavyweight champion. He's a giant in that arena. But when he starts to go into mixed martial arts, that's not his field. So that term can be used, but then what we see what we see in the movies. We see this giant, Jack and the Beanstalk type thing, because that's what it says here. So we got to look at the actual definition and see what it's talking about. All right, go ahead.
Verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with Elohim.
So in verse 8, Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. So grace didn't begin with Yahshua HaMashiach. Go ahead.
And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth also was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And Elohim said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make you an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shall you make in the ark, and shall pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which you shall make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits.
All right, so the length of the ark is 300 cubits. 300 cubits. And 300 cubits is about 450 feet. So just keep that in mind, that 300 cubits. We're going to read that again. All right, so let's go to Genesis chapter 7. And we're going to read 1 through 24. Bereshit chapter 7.
And Yahweh said unto Noah, Come you and all your house into the ark. For you have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast you shall take to you by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of the earth, all the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that Yahweh commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of the waters was upon the earth.
So Yahweh said, I'm going to destroy all flesh from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that Yahweh commanded him. So now you can see why he received grace. Was he perfect? Did he not make mistakes? We don't know that. But he found grace. That means that's something that you don't deserve. When you receive grace, that's mercy that you received that you didn't deserve. You got payment and you didn't earn that. Go ahead.
And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood.
Verse 7. So how many people were in the ark?
Noah, his 3 sons,
that's 4.
Noah's wife, that's 5, and their 3 wives, that's 8.
8 total people. So there's 8 total people on this ark right now. Go ahead.
Of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, of fowls, and of everything that creeps upon the earth. And there went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as Elohim had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark.
So that's your second witness right there. There's 8 people. Go ahead.
They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as Elohim had commanded him, and Yahweh shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lifted up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered.
So 15 cubits above the mountains was how much water was there on the earth. Go ahead, verse 21.
And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven. And they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days.
So everything and everybody else that was on that, in which was flesh, that breathed life, died, except for those 8 people that were on the ark. And it says that the water was 15 cubits upward from where the mountains were covered. And the way it's kind of written in King James, you know, it could be construed like it was only 15 cubits up versus, you know, but if it was 15 cubits up, that wouldn't be high enough to cover the mountains. So we're going to actually get into another witness, and we're going to read about that. But one interesting thing about science is a thing called island giganticism, or insular gigantism. It's a biological phenomenon in which the size of animals isolated on an island increases dramatically in comparison to their mainland relatives. Island gigantism is one aspect of the more general island rule, which posits that when mainland animals colonize islands, small pieces tend to evolve larger bodies, and large species tend to evolve smaller bodies. With the arrival of humans and associated predators, dogs, cats, rats, pigs, many giant as well as other island endemics have become extinct. So I just thought that was interesting at a time, well, maybe at the beginning of the earth when it wasn't filled with so much people. You know, what we thought was giant then might have been small, or it could be vice versa. You know, things could be way bigger. You know, the average man could have been like 2 feet tall or something, or he could have been 10 feet tall. We don't know. All they know is about with the bones that they can find now, I guess. So we're going to actually go into Enoch now, and we're going to see what Enoch has to say about these same stories. We're going into Enoch chapter 6.
In those days, when the children of man had multiplied, it happened there.
Okay, yeah. It's chapter 7 in the Sefer.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
In those days, when the children of man had multiplied, it happened there were born unto them handsome and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the daughters of man, and beget us children. And Semyaz, being their leader, said unto them, I fear that perhaps you will not consent that this deed should be done, and I alone will become responsible for this great sin. But they all responded to him, Let us all swear an oath and bind everyone among us by a curse, not to abandon this suggestion, but do the deed. Then, when they all swore together and bound one another by the curse, and they were altogether 200, and they descended into Ardros, which is the summit of Hermon, and they called the mount Armon, for they swore and bound one another by a curse. And their names are as follows: Semyaz, the leader of Arakeb, Ramael, Tamel, Ramel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakyal, Azel, Armaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zakael, Sasomaspuel, Castarel, Turel, Yamayol, and Azrael, Araziel. These are the chiefs of 10, and of all the others with them. Shall I continue?
Yes.
7. And they took wives unto themselves And everyone respectively chose one woman for himself, and they began to go unto them. And they taught them magical medicine, incantations, the cutting of roots, and taught them about plants. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants whose heights were 300 cubits.
So 300 cubits. We just read that that's the size of the ark. The ark was 300 cubits long. So that's 450 feet. So if these measurements were translated correctly in Enoch, that's saying that these creatures were 450 feet tall. I don't know how tall the tallest mountains are, but that's pretty tall. And if the ship was only 450 feet tall, what would stop them from grabbing the ship and throwing the ship over or whatever? Go ahead.
These giants consumed the produce of all the people until the people detested feeding them. So the giants turned against the people in order to eat them, and they began to sin against birds, wild beasts, reptiles, and fish. They began to sin against birds, wild beasts, reptiles, and fish, and their flesh was devoured, the one by the other, and they drank blood. And then the earth brought an accusation against the oppressors. And Azazel taught the people the art of making swords and knives and shields and breastplates. And he showed to their chosen ones bracelets, decorations, shadowing of the eye with antimony, ornamentation, the beautifying of the eyelids, all kinds of precious stones, and all coloring, tinctures, and alchemy. And they were many wicked ones, and they committed adultery and erred, and all their conduct became corrupt. Amasras taught incantation and the cutting of roots, and Armaros the resolving of incantations, and Barakiel astrology, and Kokarel the knowledge of the signs, and Tamil taught the seeing of the stars, and Asdarel taught the course of the moon, as well as the deception of man. And the people cried, and their voice reached unto heaven.
So what you're seeing here again now in our mind, and with that translation that they saying 300 cubits tall. Now this is before that after the flood happened. So the flood, humanity has started over with Noah and his 7 family members that came with him on the ship. So things could have been different, but you kind of weigh these things and look like, well, 450 feet tall. So where are the bones of these things that are that tall? But when you start to read the rest of the story and you hear about how they came into the women and they started to have children, and then you look at how they taught them all these skill sets, and you wonder, well, how did people learn these things? How did they get that? And we know that these are talking about angels that are coming down. So angels are spirits. Yahweh is a spirit. So they don't necessarily have to be fleshly creatures that are coming down. They can come down in a spirit, just like when a spirit comes over somebody and gives them the power to do something, to speak in tongues or do whatever. That's teaching somebody how to do that. So when you look at all these spirits, these might be the names of those spirits that came into man, that caused man to have knowledge they wasn't supposed to have at that time, which they in turn turned around and did wickedness with it. So let's go to Jubilees chapter 5, and we're going to get another account of this. And when you look at the concept of, do we really think that an angel was like a man-like creature that came down from heaven and slept with the daughters of man? Or does it seem more plausible that the spirits that came from heaven, that were angels, came down and dwelled in men and women that were not supposed to be receiving of that spirit? And then now they have the ability to do those things just like a speaking in tongues. And now it makes more things clear why Yahweh considers that adultery when you start to put your spirit into another god and start worshiping and doing spiritual things to dead entity. And he's like, that's adultery. You are marrying that now. You are marrying that spirit of the adversary, the devil of Babel. You are marrying that spirit. That's adultery. So that's marriage right there. And that's what he considers. And you can't marry somebody else. You already married to me. That's adultery anyway. And I'm a living Elohim. I'm not a dead God. So you're not freed from this marriage. Go ahead. We're in Jubilees chapter 5. Excuse me, chapter 6. Actually, yeah.
On a new month of the third?
No, the one before that.
Okay, so yours is just ahead of chapter?
Right.
Okay.
So it's chapter 5 on mine.
And it came to pass when the children of men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the Malachim of Yahweh saw them on a certain year of this Jubilee, that they were beautiful to look upon. And they took themselves wives of all whom they chose, and they bare unto them sons, and they were giants. And Torahlessness increased on the earth, and all flesh corrupted its way, alike men and cattle and beasts and birds and everything that walks upon the earth. All of them corrupted their ways and their orders, and they began to devour each other. And Torahlessness increased on the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of all men was thus evil continually. And Yahweh looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, and all flesh had corrupted its orders, and all that were upon the earth had wrought all manner of evil before his eyes.
So all flesh had corrupted his orders. So all the flesh on the earth was not doing what it was commanded to do, was not operating. And that's what you're doing. You're operating in corrupt orders when you having same-sex marriage. That's not natural. That's not how you were designed. Go ahead.
And also, brother, remember how Yahshua was able to tell those demons to hop into the pigs. So these evil demons may be running around, and these animals were given heat, or just vessels for the wicked intent of the angels.
Exactly.
You want to switch?
Go ahead, brother.
We can't hear you just now. You were very, very low, but we can hear you now.
Okay. Appreciate that.
We can hear you good now.
All right.
All right. Verse 4. And he said that he would destroy man and all flesh upon the face of the earth, which he had created. But Noah found free, unmerited favor before the eyes of Yahweh. And against the angels whom he had sent upon the earth, he was exceedingly wroth. And he gave commandment to root them out of all their dominion. And he bade us to bind them in the depths of the earth. And behold, they are bound in the midst of them, and are kept separate.
So we've read a lot of this stuff in Torah. We've read about at the depth of the sea and in the Euphrates rivers of these angels that are trapped. So this is not a new concept. Now, the physical depiction and imagery that we see is Greek, because that's what they have given us. You know, with the man, the little white boy with no beard and angel wings, flying with little wings on his ankles and stuff like that. That's what we see. Go ahead.
And verse 7. And against their sons went forth a commandment from before his face, that they should be smitten with the sword and be removed from under heaven. And he said, My spirit shall not always abide on man, for they also are flesh, and their days shall be 120 years. And he sent his sword into their midst, that each should slay his neighbor, and they began to slay each other till they all fell by the sword and were destroyed from the earth. And their fathers were witnesses of their destruction. And after this they were bound in the depths of the earth forever, until the day of the great condemnation, when the judgment is executed on all those who have corrupted their ways and their works before Yahweh. And he destroyed all from their places, and there was not left one of them whom he judged not according to all their wickedness. And he made for all his works a new and righteous nature, so that they should not sin in their whole nature forever, but should be all righteous each in his kind always. And the judgment of all is ordained and written on the heavenly tablets in righteousness, even the judgment of all who depart from the path which is ordained for them to walk in. And if they walk not therein, judgment is written down for every creature and for every kind. And there is nothing in heaven or on earth or in light or in darkness or in Sheol or in the depth or in the place of darkness, which is not judged. And all their judgments are ordained and written and engraved. In regard to all he will judge, the great according to his greatness, and the small according to his smallness, and each according to his way. And he is not one who will regard the person of any, nor is he one who will receive gifts if he says he will execute judgment on each. If one gave everything that is on the earth, he will not regard the gifts or the person of or any, nor accept anything at his hands, for he is a righteous judge.
Like how you gonna hold Yahweh for ransom? Like he created everything. He's the source of everything that's beautiful, as well as the source for everything that is destructive. He created that too. Go ahead.
And of the children of Yasharal has been written and ordained, if they turn to him in righteousness, he will forgive all their transgressions and pardon all their sins. It is written and ordained that he will show mercy to all who turn from all their guilt once each year. And as for all those who corrupted their ways and their thoughts before the flood, no man's person was accepted save that of Noah alone, for his person was accepted on behalf of his sons, whom Yahweh saved from the waters of the flood on his account. For his heart was righteous in all his ways, according as it was commanded regarding him, and he had not departed from aught that was ordained for him. And Yahweh said that he would destroy everything which was upon the earth, both men and cattle and beasts, and of fowls of the air, and that which moves on the earth. And he commanded that Noah make him an ark, that he might save himself from the waters of the flood. And Noah made the ark in all respects as he commanded him in the 27th jubilee of years, in the 5th week of the 5th year, on the new month of the 1st month. And he entered in the 6th year thereof, excuse me, in the 2nd month, on the new month of the 2nd month, till the 16th, and he entered, and all that we brought to him into the ark, and Yahweh closed it from without on the 17th evening. And Yahweh opened 7 floodgates of heaven, and the mouths of the fountains of the great deep, 7 mouths in number, and the floodgates began to pour down water from the heaven 40 days and 40 nights. And the fountains of the deep also sent up waters until the whole world was full of water. And the waters increased upon the earth. 15 cubits did the waters rise above all the high mountains.
So right there you see the second witness. It confirms that the water was 15 cubits above the high mountains. Go ahead.
And the ark was lifted up above the earth, and it moved upon the face of the waters. And the water prevailed on the face of the earth 5 months, 150 days. And the ark went and rested atop of Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. And on the new month of the 4th month, on the fountains of the great deep were closed, and the floodgates of heaven were restrained. And on the new month of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the water began to descend into the deep below. And on the new month of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen. And on the new month of the 1st month, the earth became visible. And the waters disappeared from above the earth in the 5th week of the 7th year thereof. And on the 17th day in the 2nd month, the earth was dry. And on the 27th thereof, he opened the ark, and sent from it beasts and cattle and birds and every moving thing.
All right, so we see here another witness in Book of Jubilees about how the whole earth was flooded, and it was 15 cubits above the highest mountains. But then earlier you read in Enoch, it says that, you know, they gave birth to children that were 450 feet tall. Now, that could be a mistranslation. I don't know, but just kind of looking at how things add up, that seems kind of off to me.
The tallest mountains that we have are pretty tall. So I mean, and then to scale them is quite an endeavor. So to get to the top of the highest mountain, like, you know, you got, I don't know what the highest mountain. You got Kilimanjaro, you got the Himalayas, and those are like tens of thousands of feet tall.
Right.
So, I mean, for it to be 15 cubits above the tallest mountain,
that's not tall enough.
But were they able to get? The only way you could survive was did you get to the top of the tallest mountain?
But that's what you would think. If you were a giant and it started to flood, that mountain is like maybe a hill to you. So you gonna go up, and so 15 cubits above that mountain is not tall enough to drown 450 foot tall people. But now a 6, 7, maybe even 10-foot man is going to drown. You know, so, and then you look at the term giants in Hebrew is Nephil or Nephal, you know, which is like the Nephilim, basically, the children of Enoch, you know, the Anakims and all that. We're going to read about that later. So when you put all those in perspective and you remove the Greek thought process, then really you just have to see it. Well, you know, we know in the King James Version there's mistakes in translation. We've caught a whole bunch of them. So you got to pull all these witnesses together and see, like, well, which is backing up which.
Gotcha.
So,
brother, I got a question on that too.
Go ahead, brother.
Even though it was 22.5 feet above the highest mountain, and yes, it's not tall enough, you know, to cover if they were standing on the mountain. The thing is, they were no balance. More than 22 feet above the highest mountain, and the water was also rushing around the world, and the wind and so forth, and plus they had nothing to eat either. So you're talking about 40 days and 40 nights, you know, that is long enough. It could be long enough where their bodies are so large it needs food. They would eat people out of heights and homes. So if it was true, they would probably start off real weak, could not hold on and drown, especially with the current that rushes around these mountains and around the world. So it's possible they could have very well drowned, got weak and drowned. You know, because there was nothing really to hold itself up on if you had weak.
It's a ground extension.
Right. And one thing that you can also think of is, you know, this is before mankind as we know. This is before Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So, you know, there's a lot going on here. You know, that the world had to have been different. So, you know, it's hard for me to believe, but I can't say that it's impossible that happened, because this is before there was Hamites, Shemites, and Japhethites. You know, so things could have been different, but all I can do is pull the witnesses together and say what's supporting what.
Right.
So,
we believe too, so I'm going along with the same thing you are.
but you know, I'm gonna learn and know and see what the ancient scriptures have to say about these things, and it doesn't affect my salvation either way. But it's some good information to look at. So we're gonna go to Enoch chapter 16 now. And we're going to see about this destruction of the giants. And you know, when you look at the ancient pictures of in Egypt of, you know, of Kemet type stuff or whatever, you'll see, you know, they'll have really tall men that'll be way higher than the Hebrews, just holding them up by their hair like this, and that's, you know, tall men. If you have a midget and you have a tall man holding them up like that, that already looked like that. You know, but he had to be pretty strong to hold another man up by his hair. Several of them. You know, so I can see that. That's more realistic, and I can see all them people dying just like everybody else, and only Adam's bloodline, his bloodline that went through Seth was the only one that lived. So we're in Enoch chapter 16.
From the days of slaughter?
Yeah. Wait. And as the death of the giants. Go ahead.
From the days of the slaughter and destruction and the death of the giants and the spiritual beings of the spirit and the flesh, from which they have proceeded forth, which will corrupt without incurring judgment, they will corrupt until the day of the great conclusion, until the great age is consummated, until everything is concluded upon the watchers and the wicked ones. And so, to the watchers on whose behalf you have been sent to intercede, who were formerly in heaven, say to them, you were once in heaven, but not all the mysteries of heaven are open to you, and you only know the rejected mysteries. Those ones you have broadcast to the women in the hardness of your hearts, and by those mysteries the women and men multiply evil deeds upon the earth. Tell them, therefore, you will have no shalom.
So it talks about how, that they put that spirit into these women. And these women have gone through the earth and with the man have multiplied evils upon the earth. So now you go back when you listen to how the prophets would talk about these doctrines, how they would say this woman, the woman, beware of the whorish woman that's coming with this seduction and this, that, and the other. And we know that, okay, it's talking about carnal women as well. Mm-hmm. But that's not the main precept of the food that they're trying to give you, is talk about these spiritual doctrines that they come from different people. Even when you look at the martial arts we study, in African martial arts, it comes from a woman. Where that woman got it from? Wing Chun came from a woman, a Shaolin nun. Where'd she get that from? So you can see how that spirit will be put on, and how the mother is the first with the baby to teach the child how to do things, and has that spiritual connection from the navel, where your power comes from. Your power is in your navel, so you see all those things connecting. You can see from a spiritual perspective how these spirits could have went through these women that were to use for good things, but it was too much power for man to deal with at that time. So he turned it around and corrupted himself with it and killed until they killed each other off. All right, so let's go to Luke chapter 20, and we're going to get back into the Torah now, and we're going to get some things straight so we can make sure that we're understanding what we're reading properly. Anytime you deal with anything, always go back to the Bible, to the Old Testament and New Testament, and stick to the main precepts of that, and things should not contradict it. Now, in English, there'll be contradictions, but if you get down to the Hebrew root of what things mean, like giant, and you get down where it says that is a bully or a tyrant, then you see, okay, all right, I have a proper understanding. So we're in Luke chapter 20, and we're going to read verses 27 through 38. Go ahead, brother.
Then came to him certain of the Sadducees, which denied that there is any resurrection, and they asked him, saying, Master, Moshe wrote unto us, if any man's brother die having a wife, and he die without children, that his brother should take his wife, and raise up seed unto his brother. There were therefore 7 brethren, and the first took a wife, and died without children. And the second took her to wife, and he died childless. And the third took her to wife, and like manner the 7 also, and they left no children and died. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of them is she? For 7 had her to wife. And Yeshua answering and said unto them, the children of this world marry and are given in marriage, but they which shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world and the resurrection from the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage. Neither can they die any more, for they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of Elohim, being the children of the resurrection. Now that the dead are raised, even Moshe showed at the bush, when he called the Yahweh Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. For he is not an Elohim of the dead, but of the living, for all live unto him.
All right, so he's not the Elohim of the dead, he's the Elohim of the living. So if he's your husband, then he's your husband forever. Period. He not you can't marry somebody else because he's not dying. And there's a whole lot going on in this little piece right here. And we catch part of it. We see that the angels do not marry or are given in marriage. Now, to be given in marriage, that means you'd have to be a woman that a father is giving away you in marriage. And you are married once your husband seals that covenant by knowing his wife through sexual intercourse. And you don't marry a woman until the father gives you that woman to marry, and then you seal that covenant. You make the covenant and the vow to the person, and you seal that covenant. Then you're married. Now, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen in heaven amongst the angels. They're not married or given. They're not given in marriage, or do they marry? Now, with that concept that if you marry somebody, that's forever, how wicked is it for them angels, them spirits, to come down here on earth and marry men spiritually? Because that's what a spirit does. Yahweh didn't come down here and sleep with us as a nation. You know, we all sat down and bent over and Yahweh just did his thing. That's carnal. That's not how the marriage was. It was spiritual. So these angels are doing the same thing spiritually, but marrying the daughters of men. Creating these children with this knowledge that they're not supposed to have. Receiving that kind of spirit. So now it makes sense of why they were punished. The angels are supposed to come down here in messengers, guide, and you know, push people along, but they're not supposed to get in you and deal with you like that. That's why all those angels that were casted out and left and came down here to earth and started defiling us and causing us to do wickedness, those are the angels that are going to get judged by us once we learn righteous judgment. All right, so let's go ahead and go to Jude chapter 1. If you try to understand the creation that Yahweh has created, and the prophecies and the spirit and the law and all that, if you just look at it from a carnal perspective of what you carnally experience and understand, you're trapping yourself to what they have shaped you with society, with the media, with the schools, with the way our parents were treated and how they in turn treated us. We got to find a way to unlock that Hebrew culture that's in you, the spiritual culture, that spiritual connection that you have, to better understand your history, your culture, what your people do and what they did and their mistakes. And you use, obviously, your experience, your intellect, your best ability, your full mind capacity to study and make sure that you're not just, you know, getting carried off into a fantasy, that you're precepting, using multiple sources, resources to say, well, this is everything. How do you judge properly without seeking diligently, without seeing the other resources? You're just going to trust what that guy says is right. I'm just going to trust it. You can't be put and made a judge to judge angels with that perspective. Now, Yahweh told you that. That's a different story. That there's no further witness necessary. All right, so we're in Jude chapter 1.
Jude, the servant of Yahshua Messiah, and brother of James, to them that are sanctified by Yahweh the Father, and preserved in Yahshua Messiah, and called. Mercy unto you, and peace, and love be multiplied. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you, and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, wicked men, turning the grace of our Elohim into lasciviousness, and denying the only sovereign Yahweh and our Master Yahshua Messiah. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that Yahweh, having saved the people out of the land of Mitzrayim, afterward destroyed them that believed not, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, unto the judgment of the great day.
So now you're seeing another witness. So now Jude is talking about this. Where did he get that from? Who told him that? He had to get that somewhere. Go ahead.
Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them, in like manner giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moshe, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, Yahweh rebuke you. But these speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts, in those things they corrupt themselves. Woe unto them, for they have gone the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Kor. These are spots in your feasts of charity, when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are, without water, carried about of winds, trees whose fruit withers, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by the roots. Plucked up by the roots. Plucked up by the roots. Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackest of darkness forever. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, Yahweh comes with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are wicked among them of all their wicked deeds, which they have unrighteously committed, and of all their hard speeches which wicked sinners have spoken against him. These are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lust, and their mouth speaks great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. But, beloved, remember you the words which were spoken before of the apostles of our Master Yahshua Messiah, how they told you there should be mockers in the last time, who should walk after their own wicked lusts. These they be who separate themselves, sensual, having not the Spirit. But you, beloved, building up yourselves on your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Spirit. Keep yourselves in the love of Yahweh, looking for the mercy of our Master Yahshua Messiah unto eternal life. And of some have compassion, making a difference, and others save with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling, and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy, to the only wise Elohim, our Savior, be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and ever. Amen.
All right. So, I believe it talked about also the Enoch, also the seventh from Adam. You know, Yahweh coming to 10,000 of his saints. So, you know, you see another reference to information that where are they getting this stuff from. Now, that's in the Torah as well. But, again, these are different witnesses. And it talks about, again, we're talking about angels leaving their former estate. The angels are servants just like us. Just imagine the son say, I ain't coming up today. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to check out Jupiter. You know, Jupiter got some nice little rings, or Saturn. I'm going to check y'all out.
I have a question, brother. In verse 16, it talked about, you know, men being murmurers and complainers, walking after their own lusts, speaking great words. and then having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. So being respecters of persons, basically. And in a time like this, you know, everyone always has a lot of respect of persons. It's almost like they don't want to listen to you unless you have some great degree or some, you know, accolade or something. Right. How should people of the Most High adapt to situations like that?
That's not your pay grade. Your pay grade is to deliver the information and allow Yahweh to provide you with all those blessings. That doesn't mean you don't seek your own blessings. You go after what you normally go after. But as far as having to feel like you gotta, you know, put on this presentation to fool people into being like that you this big successful preacher, no, that's a lie. Anything coming into something with a lie is already stepping in on the wrong foot. You coming in with your weak foot. You want to come in with your strong foot, so you come in with the spirit of truth, and this is what it is. And if Yahweh wanted that, he would have chose another nation of people to be his people, a great, big, mighty, strong nation of big giants, and he wouldn't have chose Yeshua. He'd have chose another man that was huge and come from the, you know, the most kingly bloodline, and not a carpenter. That, you know, there's a question about his bloodline and all that type. He wouldn't do that. But he's doing that in that fashion where he wasn't somebody that was very comely and attractive. So, and he came from Nazareth. So to test man's heart, are you going to listen to him because he looks like his full glory, what he is? Or are you going to listen to him because the righteousness of that word, that spirit is connecting with you? So that's how you talk to people. Some of the disciples were rich, and they, you know, and they were like, well, that spirit talked to me, and they left that stuff behind. All right, so we're going to, do we finish Jude?
Yes.
We're going to Ezekiel chapter 28. So these angels left their estate. They had an estate to do something, a position to take care of an area, to ensure that certain things went a certain way. They decided, no, we are our own gods. We're not going to do what Yahweh said. We're going to do what Lucifer is talking about. Luke said we can do this. And you see how Luke told him, Eve in the garden, she can do this. So Luke real good at telling people how to do wickedness. Ezekiel chapter 28, and we're going to read verses 1 through 19.
It's also interesting, brother, how, you know, we're seeing three witnesses of these evil entities specifically coming after the women to corrupt the man. Not saying they don't come after the man as well, but to a greater degree, emphasis is put on, you know, the infection of the woman. Lucifer already set the standard. He's like, look, dude, you can take this. Adam was on point. He was on point, so on point that Yahweh said, look, it ain't good that he be alone. Let me give him a reward. Let me give him a woman that help him. Watch his back. Keep him on point. So Lucifer from the beginning said, oh, I'm going to go at that weaker vessel. So he put that spirit of that wickedness on that weaker vessel. And now it's merging with the weaker men, because we were weak at that point. We weren't built up spiritually like we are now. You can see how these things happen. Man don't really fully understand what righteousness is yet. But there's a remnant that Yahweh chose to say, look, you get it. You understand. And everybody else was just man. So I guess that's why we gotta be gentle to the woman, knowing that many different diverse temptations or angers.
She's under attack. Yeah. That's your job to protect her, not for you to rough her up. Your job is to protect her from the spirits trying to rough her up. But if she's trying to attack you, you got to defend yourself. You can't lay down and die and just fall into sin and be like, well, we gonna both sin and we both gonna jump in there. You supposed to cover her. You bear her iniquity if you're her husband. So now, again, going back to that spiritual understanding of marriage with the spirit, being married unto a spirit, with us being the brides of Yeshua. And he married us by giving us the spirit of life, the spirit of Israel. Now his wife, us, turns around and commits this iniquity. He has to come down here and bear that iniquity. He had to die. He had to bear the iniquity for his wife. But if you can't understand the carnal, that spiritual is just going to fly right over your head.
Ezekiel 28, verse 1. The word of Yahweh came again unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus says my sovereign Yahweh, because your heart is lifted up, and you have said, I am an El. I sit in the seat of Elohim, in the midst of the seas, yet you are a man and not an El. Though you set your heart as the heart of Elohim, behold, you are wiser than Daniel. Behold, there is no secret they can hide from you. With your wisdom and with your understanding you have gotten you riches, and have gotten gold and silver into your treasures. By your great wisdom and by your traffic have you increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches.
Okay, so it sounds like he's talking to a man. It says here, the prince of Tyrus. And it talks about how wise he is. He's wiser than Daniel. You wiser than Daniel. You got some kind of spirit working with you. You ain't just some dude that's just that smart. Daniel was wise. He had Yahweh with him. And he had brothers that had Yahweh with them with him. So you're seeing all these things, and that you think that you are an El because you sit in the seat of Elohim in the midst of the seas. So now it's kind of like, wait a minute, is he talking to an angel? Is he talking to him? He's talking some, he's going kind of back and forth. Go ahead.
Verse 6.
Go ahead, brother.
Basically, he's indirectly talking straight to Satan. That's basically what he's talking about right there, indirectly to Satan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And as we go down further, we get into that. But the whole concept that we're seeing in here is this intermingling, where you're talking to the entity, but he's dealing with that physical entity that's hosting that spirit. So the prince of Tyrus. So if you're an angel and you're going to marry something, you're going to want to marry something you can do some damage with. Let me marry like Obama so I can blow up some countries and make some wicked laws and kill some more Hebrews and legalize gay marriage and do all that kind of stuff. That's what an angel going to pick. He's not going to pick you walking around here, you work for Comcast. He don't care about you. He got you. Because if you ain't doing what you're supposed to do, you gonna get got anyways. But he's going after the people he can infect at the top that can cause the most damages. And we're gonna actually precept that a little bit later in some of the same readings we're gonna get into.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with that.
Right.
All right.
Go ahead, brother.
Verse 6. Therefore, thus says my sovereign Yahweh, because you have set your heart as the heart of Elohim, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon you, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against your beauty, the beauty of your wisdom, and they shall defile your brightness, and they shall bring you down to the pit, and you shall die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Will you yet say before him that slays you, I am Elohim? But you shall be a man and no El, in the hand of him that slays you. You shall die the deaths of the uncircumcised by the hands of strangers, for I have spoken it, says my sovereign Yahweh. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus says my sovereign Yahweh, you seal up the sum of the sum full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You have been in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardius, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of your tabrets and of your pipes was prepared in you in the day that you were created. You are the anointed cherub that covers, and I have set you so. You were upon the holy mountain of Elohim. You have walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire.
So now that you get here, you realize, wait a minute. Hold on, you was in the garden? Okay, so obviously he's talking to a man, addressing a man, but he's dealing with that angel that has married unto this man. Go ahead.
Verse 15. You were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created till iniquity was found in you. By the multitude of your merchandise they have filled the midst of you with violence, and you have sinned. Therefore I will cast you as profane out of the mountain of Elohim, and I will destroy you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness. I will cast you to the ground. I will lay you before kings that they may behold you.
So Lucifer, he was so beautiful and had so much knowledge and wisdom. And, you know, and the women loved him, obviously, because he loved to marry onto these women. And he thought through his wisdom he could somehow alter this system to cause what did happen with man being kicked out the garden, and cause himself to be able to reign in heaven. That was his whole goal. His seat is here on earth, but he want to reign in heaven, because Elohim is the Elohim of heaven and earth. He wants to be the Elohim of heaven because now he's the most high. So he's going to be changed into a man like what we see here. So when you jumping in this spirit and you jumping in and out of people and using people, well, you're going to get trapped and you're going to get dealt with like a man. Since you always bounce every time, you know, the man already did the deed and now he got to deal with the punishment. You bounce, you gone. You back to heaven, or you on the other side, to and fro, up and down, looking for somebody else to slay. Well, no, this time you going to get slayed and all the kings going to sit there and watch that. Go ahead and finish that.
Verse 17. Verse 18. You have defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities, by the iniquity of your traffic. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of you. It shall devour you, and I will bring you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold you.
So he has sanctuaries. Lucifer has sanctuaries? Go ahead.
All they that know you among the people shall be astonished at you. You shall be a terror, and never shall you be anymore.
All right. Now let's go ahead and move on to Daniel chapter 10. So we see here Yahweh is talking directly to a man that is of power on this earth, with earthly power and a mighty one. And then you see, as the conversation gets deeper, he's talking to that angel, that spirit that is dwelling inside that man, that's causing all these problems, that has been doing this from before, and that this is not just new. So now we're going to get another instance of that in Daniel chapter 10. And start at verse 1.
In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar.
Right.
And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. In those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. And in the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river which is Hiddekel, then I lifted up mine eyes, and I looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linens, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and feet like the color of polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude.
So you're looking at his body is beryl. Beryl is a dark color. It's not a light color. And his face has the appearance of lightning. So it was shining. It was bright. Just like Moshe's face shined when he was in the glory of Yahweh. Now, again, we know that Yahweh is invisible Elohim. So you would think that his children are probably invisible too. But when they take the image, they're taking an image that's comfortable to us. And what would be comfortable or able to deal with would be somebody that would look like us. So of course he would be a dark-skinned person, because that's where everybody on the earth was dark-skinned at that point. He's not going to show up like, you know, something that is just going to scare us, because then that would be his purpose then, to scare us off. We'd be running. But he wants to let you know that, okay, this is Yahweh's glory. You better have respect. But it's in a palatable, visual appearance that you can deal with. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. And behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my knees, and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto you, and stand upright, for unto you am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you did set your heart to understand and to chasten yourself before your Elohim, thy words were heard, and I am come for your words.
So this is why you got to endure. He heard him from the first day that the prayers were made. But it was how long? Was it 3 weeks? What was it? How long was it that he was praying?
21 days.
21 days, yeah. So about 3 weeks, this brother is praying and not getting the answer. But the prayer was heard from the first day that he had decided to afflict himself. That he decided to be like, you know what? I'm going to really try to get my Elohim's attention. I'm going to, I'm walking in righteousness, but I'm going to suffer myself. So that you're gonna pay attention to your righteous ones. So I'm gonna do that so I can get your attention for my people. Go ahead.
No mistake, brother. 24 days. This is verse 4.
24 days. Okay. Thank you, brother.
On the 4 and 21st day of the first month.
Yep. So it's about 24 days. Yep. Go ahead.
Verse 10. And behold, verse 12.
13.
Verse 13?
Yeah.
Okay. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained with the kings of Persia.
So let's do the math. On the 24th day, he came, right? But for 21 days, he was fighting for somebody else. So you do that math and subtract that. How many days you get left?
3 days.
3 days. Just enough time to separate yourself. To be clean, to be able to present yourself before Yahweh. Which is interesting. Go ahead.
Verse 14. Now I am come to make you understand what shall befall your people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. And when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitude of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my sovereign, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. For how can the servant of this my sovereign talk with this my sovereign? For as for me, straightway there remained no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me.
So he knows that he's dealing with an angel. He knows that. And then you see here, this angel has to deal with the prince of Persia. He's fighting with the prince of Persia, but he's an angel. So is he fighting with the literal prince of Persia? Yes. But he's fighting with that angel that's over the prince of Persia. And we're going to start to get into that as well. Go ahead.
Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me. And said, O man greatly beloved, Fear not, peace be unto you. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my master speak, for you have strengthened me. Then said he, Knows you wherefore I come unto you? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. But when I show you that which is noted in the scriptures of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael, your prince.
Right, so he's got to deal with the prince of Persia, and now then after that he got to go deal with the prince of Grecia. You know, so there's spirits that are over these other nations to move them to do what they need to do. There's no way you can turn on the news and you see the whole of Spain or the whole of Brazil all in the streets all at one time riding against whatever they upset about. Soccer game, whatever. You know, that's a spirit that's got to be moving all these people to go in that direction. So he's got to deal with the head of that spirit that is controlling the whole country to do whatever wickedness, even if it's controlling the leadership to go against what the country wants to do. There's a spirit over that allows that, because how did that man get that kind of power to begin with? Something had to have been granted to him. So let's go to Ephesians chapter 6, and we're going to hear the conclusion. Ephesians chapter 6.
Also, I wanted to bring up the last line. It talks about Michael, your prince. It's stated that Michael is the defender of the Israelites.
Right.
Yahweh's children. I just want to bring that point up.
Right. All right, and we're going to go ahead and close out with Ephesians chapter 6, and we're going to read verses 10 through 24. And you just got to understand that concept. Some things are above your pay grade. There's things going on in this world that you try to put your hands in you're going to get a rude awakening, because there's other forces involved. You need to figure out what Yahweh wants you to do. Now, if Yahweh has you to be the thing that's going to receive the glory to go against those big forces, then you'll know, because you won't have a choice. But at the end of the day, when things are going on and you trying to involve yourself in politics, I'm going to vote for the next president and make a difference and all that foolishness, which don't make a difference even in earthly life, but you feel that you're going to try to control that arena, you got to understand there's other spiritual things. You better make sure that you're following the Spirit, and the Spirit is moving you that way. Because there's angels that are over things. We've already read about in Revelations about the angels of the churches. Mm-hmm. So this is not a new concept. All right, go ahead, brother. Verse 10, and we're going to go through 24.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the master and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
So we're dealing not with flesh and blood. So when you sit here beefing with a person, understand that that's just the person. That's just the flesh. If they are operating against this word and trying to prevent you from walking on that narrow path, then you have to understand what you're dealing with. You're dealing with spiritual wickedness. Yeah, it doesn't mean you just enjoy the person and be happy because, oh, I know it's the wicked spirit that's doing it. No, that vessel finna get punished too. But have mercy on that individual, because they're being used and they cannot see clearly. Because if they're transgressing the commandment, they can't see clearly, obviously. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of Elohim, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness.
So you have your loins girt about with truth, with the word, the Holy Spirit, and having a breastplate of righteousness, which is walking according to that Holy Spirit. You can't go by that. You can't go to see the post and say, click here, like for the blessings and the armor. You can't. It doesn't come that way. It has to be attained by righteousness and obedience and mercy to the rest of his children. Go ahead.
And your it was verse 15. And your feet shod with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the good news.
So when you go to verse 18, it talks about, praying always with all prayer and supplication. And actually, it wasn't that. It was verse 17. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. That is your defense, that word. And it cuts, and that's how it says that you got cut by the word, because the word is like a sword, but it's a double-edged sword. Because it cuts going in and cuts coming out, and it cuts you. It cuts you because it applies to you. If you being a hypocrite, you getting cut up. You just don't see it. It's like getting cut up on your back, and you don't know until you feel the blood coming out. Go ahead.
Verse 20. For which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak, but that you also may know my affairs and how I do. Titus, a beloved brother and faithful minister in the Master, shall make known to you all things, whom I have sent unto you for the same purpose, that you might know our affairs, and that he might comfort your hearts. Peace be to the brethren, and love with faith from Yahweh the Father, and the Master Yahshua Messiah. Grace be with you all, them that love our Master Yahshua Messiah in sincerity. Amen.
All right. Well, that's all we're going to do today. I just wanted us to go over and get an understanding of dealing with these spirits, and understand what game you're playing. If they're out here playing chess and you looking here trying to double jump people, with checkers, then you completely confused, and certain things are out of your league. We playing checkers, they playing chess. They in a spiritual realm. You can only trust a spirit to fight that spirit. You can't fight that. You sitting here trying to fight the man, you beat the man, you thinking you beating the spirit. That spirit will jump up and go somewhere else and do what it need to do. So we got to keep that in mind and understand that we're dealing with spirits, and use our spirit to discern spirits. And the only way to do that is to use that Holy Spirit, which is that spirit of truth. That's the only thing that won't let you down. And you study to prove yourself, so you will know how to discern spirits and know what to take and invite into your spirit.
What's taken, invite into your spirit.
Right. So that's all we're going to do today. Let's go ahead and end in a prayer.
Also, brother, verse 18 talked about praying always with all prayer and supplication in the spirit, and I began to understand what it means to pray in the spirit and to stay in the spirit, because sometimes we're not in the spirit. Sometimes we just carnal. When we around certain people, or we just let our guard down, or we stop being in the word, we might take months off on a break and just start doing stuff. By the time we come back to that mirror that it talks about, it's like someone who forgets the words, like someone who forgets
their face.
His face in the mirror. Yeah, so we come back and we're like, whoa, I'm way off track, So I think praying in the spirit, you begin to get sensitive to the things of Yahweh, and you begin to get sensitive to the harsher things people say. And you be like, people are really callous. You begin to not like your feelings gonna get hurt easier, but you're more aware of what type of spirit is on other people because of the words they say, because the fruit of the lips come out the heart. The
heart comes out the lips.
Yeah,
right.
So staying in the spirit, basically, remembering all those things, love, patience, kindness, and prayer, and a humble heart towards Elohim, because we know his wrath, So are we going to approach him in the humility that he wants us to, you know, and staying in that spirit so that we'll be heard. Because if we come to Yahweh with this hardy spirit, this haughty, prideful spirit, Yahweh will be like, I don't really think I want to answer that. He might even say that, you know. So let's continue to remain in the spirit so that we make decisions according to the spirit and not in, you know, that sudden wrath that we might get in sometimes, you know. So just tailor the people we might be around, or tailor the things that we let into our spirit all the time. Even like sometimes the news be too much. I might be like, man, this is too much carnage for me. I might have to just take a break. I need to stay in the spirit, because I'll be ready to go out there and be a Nat Turner.
Yep. And that's what them angels, again, that's what they do. They try to influence the way you feel about things, and allow you, you know, and you wonder when you accomplish certain things. You be in a situation, or you be in a spar, and all of a sudden you do something and you're like, that's a shade, that's that spirit, you know, that spirit helped you do something, you know. So you got to be careful with what spirit you allow in your vessel to just go with that spirit, because that can be with us when we want to call it, but we have to decide when we want to allow that spirit. And that's what we practice, to be able to contain that spirit, not just jumping off on somebody, especially your brothers. And then being able to open and release it when I need to protect my family or my nation, or do Yahweh's orders and take back a land for him. So again, it was titled "The Fallen Ones and Giants." All right, let's go ahead and end in prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings, and all sisters pray with their heads covered. Abba Father, Yahweh, Elohim, the Allah of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Covenant Father, Elohim of Yasharal, we thank you, Yahweh. We thank you for your covering, for your protection, Yahweh. For we are truly out here walking blind and cannot see those things that are invisible, Yahweh. The forces that are behind the scenes and the backdrops, the adversary that's waiting to destroy us, Yahweh. For it would frighten us, Yahweh. But you have protected us, and you have shielded our eyes like a baby, Yahweh. And you provided covering for us, Yahweh. And you give us instructions on how we can keep this covering forever, Yahweh. And we're thankful that you have chosen us, and chosen a remnant, Yahweh, to receive of that understanding and that knowledge, Yahweh, and to know where to look and where to search to find your knowledge, Yahweh. So not only for us, but so that we can give it away, Yahweh, to all your children that you send in our direction, Yahweh. So we're thankful. We are truly not worthy, Yahweh. But we're thankful that you sent your Son, Yahweh, to bear our iniquity, Yahweh, and to be a covering for us, Yahweh, until that we can fully assume and understand all of the righteousness that you have set before us, Yahweh, that we promised and that we covenanted with you, with Yahweh. Yahweh, all these things we humbly come before you and thank and pray through your holy, humble anointed Son, Yahshua HaMashiach, in which all praise, majesty, might, and dominion resides here and forevermore. Through you, your majesty. In the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, we thank and pray. Amen.